So how would you feel if every time you did an analysis or you did some type of work, like a dashboard, you handed it off, you spent so much time doing it, and it just gets thrown straight into the trash? Believe it or not, this actually silently happens behind the scenes and you wouldn't even know it. And here's the thing, it's not because it's wrong. It's because no one understands it. Honestly, this is one of the hardest truths in data analytics. And simply, if you just can't communicate clearly, your work actually doesn't exist at all. And most analysts don't recognize this or realize this until it's too late. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to fix it and use a framework that I use when it comes to presenting data and explaining insights. Let's get into it. All right, so if you're new, my name is Zazo. I'm currently a senior data analyst and I've been working in data analytics for 4 years at this point. So the first thing that I actually have to explain is why good work goes unnoticed. A lot of analysts think their jobs end at sending off or emailing a report, sending a link to a Power BI or Tableau dashboard, but then they're surprised when nothing actually happens, none of their insights are used, and they work so hard on this project and it was basically all for nothing. And here's why. Because insights without context is just noise. The problem isn't normally the data itself, it's how you explained it. So when you just present numbers or you just read off numbers on a dashboard or report, executives hear uncertainty. They're not trying to read between the lines, make sense of it. That is your job as a data analyst, to give it to them in the most digestible way possible in order for them to action off of it as easy as they can. And here's the sad truth. When leaders are confused, they tend to default to doing absolutely nothing. So that's why communication is not a soft skill, it's a business skill. So now I'm about to give you the framework that I always use when it comes to delivering insights to anyone I'm really speaking to. Obviously, you have to know your audience. That's a part of communicating, but these generally will work if you just tweak them a little bit. It's really simple, but I see on a daily basis that not a lot of people use this. So let's go ahead and break this down. So when you have a dashboard, you want to kind of ask yourself these 5 questions. And this dates back all the way to, I don't know when I learned it, probably middle school or elementary school. What, where, when, how, and why. And some of these don't always apply, but most of the time you're able to kind of explain those things. So the first thing you're going to want to start with is, so what happened? Did sales drop? So sales dropped in December 2023. That is your what. So the first thing you're going to ask is what. So what happened? Sales dropped. That is what happened. The next thing you ask is, when did that happen? If you can dial it down to a time frame, you're going to want to do that. The next thing is, where did this happen, right? Where are we seeing this? And sometimes this applies, but not always. The next thing, which is the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is why is this happening? Which is usually the biggest part of the analysis, really understanding why. And then the next thing is how. So how is not like how this happened. It's how do we improve it, or what are your recommendations? How do you suggest as a data analyst we move forward, and what do we do to correct this? Was this a one-off incident? Do we see this year over year? Does this happen around the same time? Is this just a cyclical thing? Is this something that messed up, right? But you want to make the recommendation on how this will be fixed. So this I found really works when it comes to putting something together, and depending on your audience, you can get a little more in depth or a little higher level. Most of the time you're going to be speaking with business partners and executives, and in that case you're going to want to keep it more high level, speak in business terms, not SQL jargon or Python jargon, or all the nooks and crannies of formulas and these types of things. You're going to keep it high level, keep it business. But here's one of the pitfalls, or one of the things to watch out for. A lot of analysts like to skip the why. And the hardest part isn't SQL. It's saying, I don't know yet, but here's my hypothesis. This is what I think happened. This is why I think this happened. Most data analysts really just stop at describing the data itself. They're not willing to put themselves in a decision making or owning that analysis and really making a recommendation, even if there's some uncertainty with what happened or what should happen going forward. This is where a lot of data analysts really mess up, and this is what separates a junior analyst from a senior or lead analyst. The best analysts interpret the data and they don't just describe it. And this is where you start building trust and relationships, and your perceived value goes through the roof. And this is where your career starts to really change. Once you start communicating this way, people stop treating you as just an input-output machine where they input some requirements or questions and you output a dashboard or a report. They actually start coming to you, involving you in meetings and doing a bunch of different things just to get your opinion and your recommendations. They'll ask you questions like, what do you think about this? Or this product dropping in sales, or this product not being purchased as much. They really start leaning on you. And this just goes to show that you have an expertise that they really value. And when that moment hits, your career has changed forever. So it can be literally the same exact analysis, but a completely different perception of you and your knowledge. So I'm gonna hit you with an uncomfortable truth. If your work isn't being used, it's probably because whoever you're giving it to doesn't care. And that's almost always a communication problem. So if you want me to do a follow-up video and give you examples of bad communication versus good communication, I can definitely do that. Just leave me a comment that says communication and subscribe if you want to just be more than a data person. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I'm out.